Hey everybody, this is John from /bash, and today I am bringing you another malicious compliance Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe and ring that notifications bell so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, a lottery winner knows best when it comes to building his house. Let's jump right in. So this actually happened to my dad a few years ago. He lived in an area right along the Texas-Oklahoma border in a fairly rural area. My dad primarily worked in pipeline construction. One day my dad noticed someone had purchased a very large property not too far down the road. Turns out that the new neighbor was actually from the suburbs around Columbus, Ohio, and had just won a lottery prize. The man hadn't won the jackpot, but had won a smaller prize around $2 million. My dad was also originally from Ohio, so he decided to say hello. A few days later, he meets the lotto neighbor. We'll call him Jim. Jim starts telling my dad about his dream to build his own self-sustaining homestead far away from the rest of society. Jim was very interested in prepping and was convinced of a global societal collapse was soon to come. He used his lotto winning to purchase the land and began building his homestead. My dad honestly didn't find this that odd because many people in the area had some tendency towards independence, and those prepping shows were popular at the time. About a year later, Jim reached out to my dad to ask for help with a construction project that involves burying a large water tower in the ground. My dad is a little confused but decided to go take a look. Turns out Jim bought an old water tower, about 15 feet in diameter and about 15 feet high, for the purpose of reusing it as an underground shelter. Jim had recently completed the build of a prefab home on his property and wanted the water tower buried partially under the new home with a trapdoor built in a closet to access it. My dad immediately thought this was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard and proceeded to tell Jim all the potential issues with his plan. Jim cut him off and told my dad that his contractor for the home had basically told him the same thing, and so had several others he'd contacted to try to get them to bury this water tower. However, Jim believed this was simply laziness on their part and had the utmost confidence in his plan. My dad left, but a day or so later, Jim contacts him again and asks about paying my dad to let him rent some construction equipment he had on his property. My dad again goes over with him what a bad idea this is and how no legitimate crew would ever do this for him. Jim brings up using my dad's equipment and illegal laborers. My dad decides, well, if he's determined, might as well make a few bucks off lotto winner Jim. He quotes him some ridiculous price to rent his equipment and says he can ask a guy at work he knows about gathering up a group of day laborers. Jim agrees to the crazy price, and my dad gets in touch with a Mexican friend who had a crew of day laborers. A while later, my dad asks his friend about how the project is going. He tells my dad how nasty Jim treated the workers, how stupid the whole plan is, and how his specifications for how he wanted this built were completely idiotic. Whenever they'd offer up suggestions or point out why something he wanted was wrong, he'd essentially shut them down and use a bunch of slurs. So they buried the water tower and built this secret entrance exactly as he wanted, knowing it was completely stupid. He mentioned they only completed the job because Jim was paying them way more than they were used to making. Everyone agreed Jim was a jerk, but all the more reason to gouge your prices and take his money. A year or so goes by when my dad gets a frantic call from Jim. It had rained quite a bit, which was unusual for the area, and now the entire ground floor area of the back of his home was bowed upward about 2 feet. My dad goes to Jim's and takes a look around, realizing what has happened. Given that they had essentially just buried a large hollow object underneath his home, the rain caused the water tower to be pushed upward and right through his first floor. My dad explained the situation and Jim immediately lost it, started ranting about how he should have never used those day laborers and how he was gonna make them come fix it. My dad mentioned how that was probably impossible since most of them go back and forth across the border, but Jim was livid. My dad later found out from Jim that his insurance would not cover the damage to his home because he had buried a water tower under it without telling anyone. He mentioned trying to sue the insurance company, but that went nowhere. He also tried numerous times to find the day laborers, but was told you get what you get when you hire illegal workers to do a project that would never have gotten a permit. Over the months afterwards, there was a lot of fallout for Jim, and he couldn't even live in his home due to the damage. It eventually was torn down to be able to remove the water tower from beneath it. He burned through his lotto winnings pretty fast, so he didn't have anything left to rebuild it. He ended up selling the land and moving away about a year later. Story 2. Oh, you want me to park in my driveway and block everyone in? This just happened 2 nights ago, and it struck me how I didn't think to post it here. Tuesday, we had a snowstorm in my province, yay Canada, and we received 20 to 25 centimeters of snow, approximately 0.8 feet of snow. The snow is not the problem. The problem is the snow removal. The neighbors have a crappy contract with a crappy company who blew the snow in front of their driveway. I live in a 5-apartment complex. Behind the complex is a 3-spot parking for the other residents. My boyfriend and I both have a parking spot, which is a 2-car-long vertical parking beside the complex. We share that big driveway with the neighbors on our left, with a gap in between for the cars parked behind to get in or get out. Here's a picture of what it looks like. The black car is mine and the snow blown in front of their driveway. Well, Wednesday afternoon, I come back from work and imagine my surprise when I see this big butt snow mountain. As my boyfriend's car is parked where I am right now, I can't park on my usual spot in front of him. I'll block everyone from leaving or entering. I go park in the streets, but since there has been a snowstorm and the snow removal process is starting that night, I can't stay there for the night or I'll get a ticket. My neighbor downstairs decides to call the owner of the complex on our left, and he says, yes, she can park in front of the snow on our side. I do that. 2 hours later, an old lady rings everyone's bells in my apartment complex and demands to speak with the black car's owner. I get down, the conversation goes like this. Are you the owner of this car? I am indeed. Is it problematic? It is. This is my parking spot. My daughter comes regularly to visit me and I need this spot. This is my spot. You have no right to park over there. Mind you, there's no one parked there. Only her husband has a car, and his spot is behind the complex. Her daughter will not visit tonight, nor tomorrow morning, nor in the next few weeks, since no one can come visit anyone anymore. The pandemic rules are pretty strict where I am. I'm sorry, ma'am, the owner of your complex said it was okay. I'm so tired of fighting with everyone. I always fight with everyone. This is not your spot, kid. I'm trying to explain how I will block the passage if I park in my driveway. I keep asking her to look at the snow. It blocks anyone entering or exiting if I take my usual spot. I don't care. I do not care. You take that car and park in your own driveway. But I will block the pass. I don't care. You park in your driveway or go in the streets. This is your problem. I will not get a ticket when your owner said it was okay. You leave immediately or I call the police. Blah, blah, blah. I shut the door, flipping mad. Fine. I'll park in my spot and I'll block the whole driveway, ma'am. I simply do that. The thing is, 2 of my neighbors work from home. My boyfriend has a day off on Thursday. The old couple downstairs are retired and the other one takes the bus. I don't block anyone except for the complex on our left. Thursday morning, who wants to get out at 6:30 and honks loudly in the parking lot? Old lady and her husband, whose parking spot is behind the complex. Not even on the side, you got me? I could have parked there. It would have made no difference. I go downstairs, pajamas, coat half zipped, and wet hair. I wave and smile. Your car is blocking the entry, she yells through the downed window. I know. You asked me to park in my driveway, which I did. I see her husband on the driver's seat looking at her like, Janet, not again. She rages a little bit and says, fine, go in my driveway if you flipping want. I need to go to work now, I'm late. Of course, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I simply smiled and got in my car, reversed, let them pass, and parked in her driveway. Oh joy. This morning, my boyfriend and I left for work. When I came back, I took his spot. Tonight, she'll be happy to see no one is parked in her driveway. Until my boyfriend comes back home. In story 3, a woman blocks the sidewalk and then says if you have a problem with it, call the police. My neighbor blocked the sidewalk with her car during the last 2 snowstorms. This meant, so she claims, 1, she didn't have to shovel a path from her car to her house and instead was able to step directly on her shoveled sidewalk, which she pays someone to shovel, and could then walk to her front door, and 2, she didn't need to shovel the sidewalk that her car blocked because no snow landed there, and 3, she didn't shovel the sidewalk between her car and the edge of her property, about 2 feet, because once people have to walk around her car in the street, who cares about that last couple of feet? She shoveled the sidewalk until her driver's side of the car, but not the passenger's side. So my wife politely knocked on her door, explained that forcing our kids to walk around her car meant they walked in the street, and that wasn't safe. Therefore, could she please drive her car fully into her driveway as required by law? The law doesn't permit someone to block a sidewalk. We didn't want to make this into a big deal, but as neighbors asked if she could be a normal human. The woman said no, then claimed it wasn't safe for her to pull all the way into her driveway because that would force her to step in snow. My wife said if that was a concern, she should shovel a path on her grass from her driveway to her front door. The woman then claimed she is not feeling well. My wife pointed out that she did this 2 months ago during the last snowstorm and that she goes to work daily. If she really was sick, she'd be stuck in the house. Additionally, not feeling well doesn't preclude a person from parking in their own driveway or walking in snow. My wife said she would call the police non-emergency line. The neighbor says go ahead and she'd get a doctor's note. So we did. The police said they would drive over. We didn't see whether the police chatted with her or not. Either way, she got a ticket for blocking the sidewalk. She did shovel the 2 feet of sidewalk. I suspect the police did speak to her and reminded her that not shoveling a sidewalk is a fine from the building department, not the police, and if we were willing to call the police, we'd probably call the building department too. We had planned on it, but they were closed on the weekend when this happened. The police deal with a car that is blocking a sidewalk, the building department deals with a sidewalk that isn't shoveled. We care more about blocking the sidewalk, although shoveling the snow would be nice too. She shoveled the remaining portion of the sidewalk after getting a ticket for blocking the sidewalk with her car. She now pulled further up, still partially blocking the sidewalk, but at least we don't need to walk around in the street. Of course, if she does this again, we won't be asking her politely to move the car, and we'll just call the police immediately instead. This is John from /bash. Please hit that like button to help with the almighty YouTube algorithm, and make sure you have subscribed and have notifications on so that YouTube can let you know when my next video drops. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.